Hey, what's up? It's Lauren. I'm at Supplement Superstores, and today we are going to talk about pre-workout. It's something that I was kind of scared of and I would never have considered taking. Also, please look at all these choices, and they all do something different and they all have different amounts of stuff in them. So if you don't know what you're looking for, I have an expert to teach us all about it. All right, this is Tyler. He is going to tell us all about all of these things. So I guess, okay, tell us what some of the differences are.
So there's different levels to pre-workouts. Everybody has a different caffeine tolerance. People have different needs. You know, some people wake up early in the morning, some people work out late at night, or maybe during the middle of the day. So everybody kind of wants something a little bit different. So the main difference is, you know, one, some pre-workouts don't have any caffeine, so they're non-stims. So they're mainly gonna have a little bit of beta-alanine that kind of gets you a little tingly and makes you kind of feel like the pre-workout's kicking in. And they're also good for blood flow and endurance. So you get like pretty vascular, you're able to hit a couple extra sets and a couple extra reps while you're working out. But those don't have any caffeine, so you don't have to worry about getting super jittery. So if you're doing a cup of coffee in the morning or something, you don't have to worry about doing too much caffeine if you work out at like 5 a.m. or something. But then we also have different levels of pre-workouts that do have caffeine. So maybe you do a low stimulant one that's like 150 milligrams of caffeine, or you do a mid stim that's kind of like 250 to 300, and then we have high stims that have like 350 to 400 and beyond. So depending on your need for that energy, you may fall into one of those categories.
So if someone comes in and they say, I've never taken a pre-workout, I'm kind of scared, what would you recommend for them? Because that's where I was, and you helped me pick out mine.
Yeah, so if you've never done a pre-workout, you definitely want to start on the lower stim option just so you have some room to build up from there. I usually recommend something that's around 100 to like 150 milligrams of caffeine to start out, but we can always build from there. So a good option for beginners is going to be Megawatt. So this one's right around 150 milligrams of caffeine. It tastes really good. It's got stuff in there called nootropics that help with focus. So it's just a really good beginner pre-workout because it doesn't make you itchy or tingly, and it's just going to help kind of get you that extra little boost of energy before your workout. If you want to take it a little step further and add a couple more pre-workout ingredients, we did talk about stage 1, I know, before we started filming, but stage 1's a really good low stim option because you got about 250 milligrams of caffeine in there. So that's kind of like your low to mid range. But beginners that want to do that, you can do a half scoop, you could also do a full scoop, but I personally do the peach ring flavor. It's amazing, but I like it because you have a good amount of caffeine to get you going, but not too much to be super jittery or anything like that. But it also has 6 grams of citrulline. So citrulline is a vasodilator, and what it does is it helps with blood flow and it helps with endurance. And also, if you're a dude and you do pre-workout, it helps you look really jacked and like veiny while you're working out, so you get a good pump when you're working out. But it also has a little bit of beta-alanine, so that's that ingredient. It helps work out lactic acid in the muscle cells, so it helps with recovery as well. So this is a really good option. I would say if you're a beginner, do that one or do Megawatt.
This is actually the one that I do, this blueberry lemonade. And I started with a half scoop. I don't use it every time I work out. I use it when I'm too tired and I don't want to go. And then I take it and it's like, well, now I guess I have to. Okay, so you mentioned the prickly feeling.
Yeah.
What is that? Why is that a thing?
Yeah, so that's the beta-alanine, and what it is it's an ingredient that, that's the one that you kind of feel like when you start feeling tingly, itchy, kind of prickly, that's when you know the pre-workout's kicking in, it's doing its thing. But it also is going to work itself into your muscle cells, and it works out lactic acid, which causes your muscles to be sore, so it's kind of harder to get in the gym the next day. So while it does kick in and you feel that ingredient, just know it's not just doing that, it's also working for you so that the next day you're not as sore and you're able to hit the gym even harder.
Let's say, heaven forbid, I take one and I absolutely hate it. How long will it last until I don't feel prickly or jittery anymore?
That's a good question. So there's actually a couple different kinds of caffeine as well. Some digest fast, some digest slow. And with pre-workouts, it depends on the scoop size. Some of them have bigger scoop sizes, like Project One. If you look on your pre-workout, you'll notice like this one, the scoop size is 27.2 grams versus, we'll say, like PR. See how they're different containers? Everyone's always like, oh, like I'll get this one because I'll run through it faster, when in reality they actually have the same serving size, but the scoop is smaller. This size is 7.8. So PR, for example, is a small scoop size, so the caffeine in that one's actually going to hit you faster. Whereas Project One, since it has so many different ingredients in there, it actually has the same amount of caffeine as PR does, actually I think it has 30 milligrams more, but it'll digest slower. So with this one, you'd feel it longer. With this one, it's gonna hit you pretty quick. So you wanna look at the size of the container and know if it's a small container, it's gonna hit you pretty quick, but it also won't last as long. If it's a bigger container, it's probably gonna last with you a little bit longer, probably 30 minutes to an hour longer. Just depending on the type of caffeine that's in there and how big the scoop is.
Okay, you mentioned earlier building up a tolerance. Explain that kind of process to me again.
Yeah, so people, whenever they start out with pre-workouts, with anything like this, like caffeine, your body can build up a tolerance, or where you may not feel it as much as you did when you first started. So it's a good idea if you are getting into pre-workouts, or say energy drinks, coffee, anything like that, even tea, if it has something that's going to give you energy that your body can build up an immunity and a tolerance to, that you want to start it with a lower a lower dosage of it, so that you always have a little bit of room to build. So I wouldn't recommend jumping straight to pre-phase that has a lot of caffeine in it if you've never done it before, because then where do you go after you build up that tolerance? But if you are just starting out, you may start with a low stim, then after that tub, then you finish it, you may be like, okay, I want to try something new, maybe something a little bit more. And then if you try something like a TAC that has a little bit more caffeine than one of those guys, you'll feel it. But if you just jump to the highest dosage pre-workout, you don't really have much room to build. So if you do build up a tolerance to, say you start low, you build up a little bit higher, and you get to a point where you're like, man, I probably shouldn't be doing any more caffeine than this, and I kind of want to reset my tolerance, then I would recommend going to a non-stim for a month to reset it. So non-stims like Pump Phase, Impulse, Alpha Surge, these guys actually don't have any caffeine in them, and they're really good for people that say work out early in the morning or late at night, but they don't want to have to worry about starting or ending their day with a ton of caffeine. And they're good for resetting your tolerance too. So you might ask yourself, like, what's the benefit of taking one? So they're gonna have beta-alanine and citrulline. Most of them are just going to have blood flow benefits, like the citrulline, we talked about that earlier. The beta-alanine, we talked about that too. Glycersides, inositol, S7, they're all vasodilators. But the benefit of a non-stim, like I said, is going to kind of get you that pre-workout feeling without all the jitters and the caffeine. And if you need to reset your tolerance, do something like this for a month, and then when you finish this, start low again and rebuild your tolerance.